When I picked up my first camera about 8 years ago, I remember quite well how I would try to walk outside at night and try to take photos, but all of the photos ending up being kind of like a blurry mess. Even today though, after all these years, sometimes I might even feel the same way shooting at night. If this resonates with you, then you'll probably enjoy this video. I talked to my friend Aaron, who takes really cool photos at night, and asked him a few questions. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and you can also subscribe to my newsletter link down below.
I'm Aaron, a street photographer from London, UK. I am here in Tokyo, and we're going to do some street photography at nighttime in Nakano. So probably the most important thing is to find the interest in light. So unlike daytime, where because of the sun, you can pretty much shoot anywhere because everything is lit. At nighttime, it's not like that. So most of the roads or most areas, there isn't enough light to create interesting photographs. So it's more about seeking out areas and finding interest in light. And when you find that light, you already work those scenes. A lot of the work is finding the scene. Whereas if you're doing street photography at daytime, you can kind of just walk and walk and walk until you come across something interesting. Whereas at nighttime, it's more about finding those interesting scenes and then spending a lot of time in those areas to capture interesting shots. The good thing about shooting at night is you get different colors of light. Lots of shot fronts, they could be red neons or pink or different, yellows and oranges. And that just gives you a lot more freedom to be creative and to shoot different types of shots that you cannot get during the daytime. And when you capture subjects or scenes with different colors of light, it can convey different emotions and you can tell different stories in those ways too. So at nighttime, one of the things I always look for is textures. So an easy way to add a layer of interest to your images is to kind of shoot through textures or capture it, like use the light going through textures to add, different colors or different light, or how can I say it? So for example here, the panes of glass are either blue or yellow. So when I've captured the subject through them, there's one, the texture of the glass over the subject, and then secondly, there's the color of the glass because the light's coming through it. So you get both. One, you get the texture, and two, you get the color. When it comes to the whole sharpness thing, I'm not sure why people obsess about it so much, because having an image to be completely sharp and perfect is actually not that interesting. And in my own experience, shots which have a slower shutter speed actually tend to be more interesting, because just through that movement alone, that helps tell the story of a photo. Whereas if that shot is completely pin sharp, it can actually be a bit boring, it's a bit too crisp and precise. So I always like to shoot, I would never crank the shutter speed too high. If anything, sometimes I'm shooting at a 30th of a second, just so I can get some of the motion blur without it being overblown. But in general, I feel you don't want to shoot too perfect. If it's too perfect, it will be boring. You want some texture, you want some movement, and even if it's a bit out of focus, again, sometimes that adds to the shot and makes it even better. So the good thing about nighttime opposed to daytime is people let loose a bit more during nighttime, whereas at daytime they either work in or they may be just going to a coffee shop or something. But at nighttime people can be really extravagant with what they wear. So a good way, to make your photos just more interesting instantly is to have subjects which are interesting. Now you don't want to fall into the trap of just shooting people. because then you're just capturing an interesting subject and you're more of a documentary type image. Whereas if you want to create a street photo, it's about having that interesting character in an interesting scene, maybe using some texture and some color and some light to add some emotion and story to it. So yeah, night times, interesting characters, and that helps make interesting photos. One thing you got to be careful of is not blowing out the highlights. So with most digital cameras these days, modern ones, they do a really good job at pulling out details from shadows, but not such a good job at pulling out details from highlights which are blown out, either through the aperture and shutter speed or with exposure compensation. I always make sure that the highlights are always in check and they're not blown out. One thing you also may want to do if you don't want motion blur in your images is to open up your lens as far as it goes. So with the X100-6, you can open up the f2. That just allows more light into your lens, and it allows you to take images without motion blur and to keep your ISO low. So that definitely helps. I try to keep the shutter speed, if I don't want motion blur, at least a 60th of a second, and then I keep the ISO at max, say 1600.
Okay, that was the video. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Aaron, for your time. I miss you already after all the fun we had in Tokyo together. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
It depends on the scene. So if you don't want any shutter blur or any.
Why is he sounding like? Was that your interview pose?
It's power stance. Power stance. Here we go. Yeah. No, where was I? Oh, if you don't want any motion blur in your images, then you want to keep your aperture high, low. Is it high or low? It's low. No, it's high when it's open. It's high when it's like 1.2 is high.
Say in it at the end to facilitate, to convey your point.
In it.
Just open up the lens and
In it, yeah.
Boom, move on.
That's good.
Yeah, peas.